During the Obama administration, President Obama always said that Assad must go, Assad must go, or we cannot have peace in Syria with Assad in power, but then he never met that with actual action. He always say that Assad must go, but that's it. He never say Assad must go, or I don't know, I will launch a Tomahawk missile against Damascus. No, he never said that. And so during his entire presidency, Obama always kicked the issue down the road on the fate of President Assad in Syria. And now we have some news about the Secretary of State and the fate of Assad. So this is from the Washington Post. Tillerson say no role for Assad family in Syria's government. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said Thursday that the United States wants Syria to remain one unified country and that peace talks must lead to the departure of President Bashar al-Assad. Quote, "It is our view that we do not believe there is a future for the Assad government, the Assad family," Tillerson told reporters in a roundtable discussion here at the end of a trip that also took him to the Middle East and South Asia. He spoke after meeting with Staffan de Mistura, the UN Special Envoy for Syria, who later announced that Syrian peace talks would resume in Geneva on November 28. Quote, "The reign of the Assad family is coming to an end," Tillerson said. "The only issue is how should that be brought about?" Tillerson's remark came as Syrian government troops and their Iranian-backed militia allies, with what Tillerson said was crucial support from Russian warplanes, continue to push Islamic State militants from their final stronghold in southeastern Syria. Control over the same area near the Iraqi border is also an objective of the Syrian Democratic Force, US-backed factor who are trying to avoid direct conflict with the government. Now the Trump administration have to act, because Assad is actually winning the war in Syria, and in less than 6 months, I would say, ISIS would be totally removed from Syria and Iraq. And yes, Trump have to make an action. He have to do something because Assad is winning. And once he gonna crush the ISIS militant in eastern Syria, then he will have to crush the rebel, which will be, I think, it will be fast. In less than a year, I think they will be able to take over the different pockets that the rebel hold in different parts of Syria. But what I really don't like in this article is that Rex Tillerson is against the fact that Russia is actually helping Assad. I mean, that is exactly what the United States is doing with the Kurd, the Syrian Democratic Force. Without the air support and the weapon and the ammunition, the Syrian Democratic Force will not be able to take over of Raqqa, which is one of the ISIS capital, and that was a very important place, and they took it. And so, yeah, that is hypocrisy. And that is a good thing that Russia is actually helping Assad, because if he didn't, then ISIS would have probably be able to take Damascus, which is the capital. And I don't understand why the politicians in America, they want to overthrow a secular government. I mean, Assad is one of the most pro-woman rights in the Middle East. He's not a crazy leader like, I don't know, in Saudi Arabia or North Korea. No, he's a doctor. The guy is smart, he knows how to speak English. Again, I'm not defending Assad, but what I'm saying is that if you remove Assad, then you will have a much worse government, or you would just have fighting between the different rebel groups if they are able to take control of Damascus. The politicians in America, they'll say that they want to remove President Assad because that is the only way we can end the war in Syria, or that we must do that to protect the poor civilian in Syria that Assad is allegedly killing, but we don't have proof yet. So that's what Hillary ran against Assad. She says that she wanted a no-fly zone in Syria, that we must topple Assad, that we must put ground troops in Syria. Well, that is exactly what Donald Trump is doing. He already have signed a bill, no, I think it was an executive order, about the future implementation of a no-fly zone, which would be a new escalation in the Syria war, and Donald Trump already have put boot on the ground in Syria, even though Obama already started this operation. But what's really about is that if Assad wins the war, which I think it's likely, but I think a foreign country is going to interfere to help the rebel because that is the only way the rebel can win the war, because right now they are totally losing. So yeah, the real reason behind the Syria war and why the West want to topple Assad is that if Assad stays in power, and assume that he wins the war, then you will have Iran, Iraq, Syria and Lebanon all under Iranian influence, which make Saudi Arabia and Israel very scary. It is called the Shia Crescent, like the food. And yeah, that is the real reason. Because Assad is supporting Hezbollah, Iran is supporting Hezbollah, and they are all against the state of Israel, and they want the destruction of Israel. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia and Iran are fighting for a lot of influence in the Middle East, a power struggle between the two nations. As I've said, Donald Trump will have to make a choice to get Assad out of Damascus, because without a foreign involvement, like by example direct strike against the Syrian government, there is no way the rebel could win. There is absolutely no way, because they are in a small pocket in north west of Syria. They have also a pocket in south of Syria and south west of Syria, and they control 5 to 10% of the population, and they control like 10% of the Syrian territory. Meanwhile, the government is controlling 70 to 80% of the population and the majority of the country. So yeah, the Assad government is winning the war, and I think that's a good thing, because he's a moderate, he is a secular president. And also, if I was the president of the United States, I think I would stop my military involvement in the Syria war, because my mission is accomplished. I mean, if ISIS is destroyed, then that's over, that's finished. I can pull out my troops, and we can all go home and celebrate.